Optima Living operates high-quality seniors living communities across the lands now known as Alberta and British Columbia, traditional territories of diverse Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge that the lands where our communities stand and that our staff and residents call home are the traditional territories of many First Nations people, and we recognize their history. We're here today to talk about a really important topic, bone health, and this idea of healthy bones, super bones, but more importantly, how important bone health is to quality of life. I'm joined today by Dr. Wagg, the Chair of Healthy Aging at the University of Alberta, and let's jump right in. Let's talk a little bit about this idea. Maybe we should start with, Adrian, what is the definition of osteoporosis?
Osteoporosis simply means thinning of the bones. Of such a degree that you're at risk of a fracture. And it's what we call a low trauma fracture. So the typical thing would be a fall, usually in an older woman or man, which leads to a wrist fracture, very common. Or often sudden loss of height, which are asymptomatic vertebral crush fractures, which occur with osteoporosis.
And so how do you distinguish healthy bones from unhealthy bones?
Healthy bones would be those which support you in your daily activities without causing damage. So a reasonable amount of cortical bone, the strong stuff, and without significant loss.
And how do you tell if you have strong bones or not?
Well, unfortunately, like most of these things, you only know when it goes wrong, and that's unfortunate. But again, your peak mass in your 20s, affected by immutable factors like for women, age when your periods start, age when your periods finish, a shorter period of menstruation associated with a higher risk. So estrogen's important, and menopausal, postmenopausal osteoporosis, very common. Nowadays, a lot of family docs will have a screening program using bone density scans, either by ultrasound sound waves or by a thing called X-ray densitometry. And you can estimate your risk as much as you can estimate your fracture risk by taking into account whether you smoke, how much you exercise, your body mass index, your alcohol intake. All of those factors can calculate a fracture risk, and over 10 years, and if you're high enough, we start to treat that.
What can people do to preserve the healthiness of their bones as they age?
For women, postmenopausal women, obviously, well, the first thing that everyone should take living in Alberta or BC is vitamin D. We don't get enough sunlight exposure even when even the summer with the long hours. So everybody should be taking 2,000 units of vitamin D every day. And extra calcium if you don't have a normal diet, which is with dairy products and non-restrictive. You don't need additional calcium, but 500 milligrams a day of calcium if you think you're low in normal dietary calcium. Not more, because that also affects the hardening of your vascular system, and that's not a good thing.
With more and more people not drinking milk nowadays, or dairy in general, be it to intolerances or otherwise, how does one make sure they get enough calcium? I guess you can obviously take supplements.
That's it. I mean, calcium is largely in cheese and dairy products. So you really are left with supplementation as being the alternative there. As much as we have vitamin D and folate supplementation of diet in other products like breakfast cereals and other stuff, there aren't that many calcium supplemented products available. So taking something is important.
Fair. Okay. And then, so we've talked a little bit about the calcium part. Are there other foods that are good for bone health in general? So vitamin D, calcium, but are there other foods in general people should be eating just to have stronger bones?
I think a decent protein intake, because clearly musculature is important for joint stability and bone health and the ability to exercise. Resistance exercise and stress on the bones is important. There is your bone is consistently turning over, so we don't have the skeleton with which we were born, and it's turned over every few years completely. So making sure that you have a well-balanced diet is important. Making sure that your body mass index is as near normal as possible. Although intriguingly, there's estrogens are metabolized in fat. So obese older individuals have higher levels of circulating estrogen, which theoretically improves bone density.
What role does bone health versus muscle health play in all of this? Because obviously they're interlinked, but is there a way to kind of view this when you're thinking about quality of life as you age and maybe parameters? I know you've talked a little bit sometimes with me about like the standing test or the balance, but what are ways that people can not only test their their strength, their quality of aging, if you will, quality of life, and how important is it?
Well, a typical test is that can you stand up from a chair with your arms crossed? Or it is a pretty good rule of thumb to think, well, am I fit enough? People are increasingly sedentary as they get older. Up to 70% of people over 65 will have what we call a sedentary lifestyle. But 70% of them think that they're fit enough to do exercise. Clearly they aren't, and they don't do it. We know there's a decreasing proportion of older people who both partake in healthy aging behaviours, but certainly in physical exercise, which would be that mandated, say, by the Canadian authorities, an hour and a half of moderate physical activity a week. So that's vanishingly rare. Admittedly, 80% of people will do regular exercise when you include walking. But if you take walking out of that, it's less than 50%. And particularly around fracture risk, then we talk about muscle strength, so resistance exercises, but also core and balance exercises to reduce falls risk, because that's the thing that clearly results in fracture. And if you are elderly, fall on the floor, fracture your neck of femur, and have an emergency hip replacement, 1/3 of people will be dead the next year. 1/3 of people won't get back to their same level of mobility. Yeah. So it's not a good thing to have.
Yeah, I know my grandmother, 9 months after she broke her femur.
Yeah.
And it's just like that. Yeah. It is, the falls risk is such a big thing for people, because as soon as they do fall and they do fracture something, it's not always that case, but it's hard.
Leading cause of traumatic death in older people, falls.
Are there other things that you think people should be doing to maintain bone health as they age that we haven't already talked about?
Well, I think getting assessed and screened is the first thing, much like preventive health, because once again, you don't know you've got it until something goes wrong.
Fair.
Yes, you can maintain a healthy lifestyle as much as possible, which will minimize the risk, but there still is a level of risk. So the bone densitometry, assessing your fracture risk is part of that preventive program.
Are there 3, 4, 5 easy steps that we could give people, tips that we could say, look, when you walk off this, here are some practical things you can do to just maintain your bone health?
So I think we've kind of encompassed them. The usual remarks around healthy diet, but vitamin D supplementation, maybe calcium, maintaining a normal body mass index, not smoking, not drinking excessively, and exercise, but exercise not just for resistance and keeping muscle mass, but for balance and core stability too. And then getting the right walking aids if you are a bit mobile, not just a simple cane, but a tripod. And of course in Canada, thinking about the winter.
Yeah. And someone uses walking sticks and other people use different things. There's so many different ways.
Nordic walking, the tripod sticks are better than the single ones, and then those slip-on soles with little grips on them for when it's icy.
What can people be doing at an earlier age to be thinking about their bone health and just to be more proactive so that they don't get to a point where?
Well, I think the same thing from midlife. And if you want a lifestyle marker in women, it's typical menopause, 52. That's when you should probably start thinking about, okay, there's going to be a downturn in bone density here. What can I do to address that? For men, it's maintaining good, healthy aging behaviors throughout.
I've heard you talk a little bit about the study your colleague did with rats and found the age at which the body probably changes a lot.
So yeah, the animal model thing is slightly flippant. It's difficult. An aged rat isn't the same as an aged human. You can't compress the human lifespan into a 3-year rat. But yes, the changes associated with aging obviously occur more over midlife and post-average reproduction, when we move from reproduction to really maintenance. But as we say, we have an increase in garbage in our body that isn't removed as well, for want of a better phrase. So the effects of aging per se are then the great risk for age-associated disease. So if we can do something about changing the effects associated with aging, and there's good evidence that these healthy aging behaviours can do that, as much as we can possibly do. So there's that study in the Welsh men from the University of Cardiff showing that those people who carried on with the tenets of healthy aging, carried on with their physical exercise and their healthy lifestyle, they were physiologically, so their body systems were 10 years younger at the same chronological age for those who didn't.
Interesting.
So it's not just treating age-associated disease, it's treating the underlying cause of the disease that's important.
Adrian, thanks so much for joining us and talking about healthy bones. It's wonderful. It's obviously great to see you, but it's also super helpful to be learning about all of these different things regularly, because if nothing else, educating and engaging individuals to think about all these little aspects of quality of life just makes such a profound difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yep.
Hi everybody, my name is Haidong Liang. I'm currently the Executive Director of the Westend Seniors Centre and We Seniors Strathcona County. And today I'm here to share with you some experience about why seniors should do exercise and what are the benefits of that. So hopefully the information that I share with you will benefit you today. And it's just some small tips that will just keep you going. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. You're just doing it at home. It's convenient. It will benefit you. And the most important thing is it will keep your brain going. All right, so for people who just wanted to sit down to do the exercise, or when you're watching TV, movies, enjoying your afternoon, this is a very simple exercise that you could do. I'm combining the both, okay? So the first thing is the feet extension and flexion, okay? It's very simple exercise. Everybody actually knows how to do it. So I will show it the left foot and then the right foot. So first you point it forward, right? So that's the extension of the foot. Hold it for a few seconds. And then you could do the flex, pointing towards yourself. Then hold it for a few seconds. Okay, it's very simple, something that everybody can do, okay? So that's one exercise. The second exercise that you could do simultaneously is actually making a fist. So just gently hold your palm and then squeeze your hand. This is when you are actually squeezing the muscle, and it will help you to circulate the blood so quickly, okay? So when you're holding your fist, hold it for a few seconds, then gently open, spread your hands as much as you can, and hold it for a few seconds. Look at how I'm doing it, okay? So it's very simple, okay? And then just combine those two exercises together. So the foot exercise and the hand exercise. So when you are doing the extension of your foot, open your palms as much as possible. When you are flexing your foot, pointing towards yourself, make a fist and squeeze your fist and hold it for a few seconds. Okay, just like this. Open, close. All right, so this is an exercise I really love to share with people all the time. I mean, a lot of people know how to do it, but when you get older, one of the concerns that we have is balance, right? So we don't want people to fall. So of course, it's a good idea to have a chair, but also having a chair in front of you is a great way to keep your posture correctly. And then when you're doing the squat, make sure do it slowly, but then put your hands on the back of the chair. When you do the squat, slowly lower your body, okay? Just when you get to the squat position, hold it for a few seconds, So when you're in this position, the reason why I said to have a chair is very important is because it will help you to keep your back straight. Then slowly get back up, okay? All right, so I'm gonna demonstrate this exercise when I'm lying down. Although I'm lying on a yoga mat, I'm actually mimicking your bed, okay? So for a lot of seniors, every morning when you get up, one thing I always wanted to remind seniors is that don't get up so quickly. Okay, you might feel dizzy. So one thing I ask you to do is to just stay in your bed for a few minutes and do this very simple exercise that will help you to get your blood circulation going, okay? So you extend your feet, hold it for a few seconds, and then flex your feet pointing towards your head, the direction of your head, and also hold it for a few seconds. And hands. So for hands, very simple, make a fist, gently close your palms and hold it tight for a few seconds. Then open and spread your finger as much as you can. Also hold it for a few seconds as well. You could actually do it just underneath the blanket. So you could do it this way, open your palm and make a fist, squeeze your hand as much as you can, okay? Then I will combine both exercises together. So extend your feet and at the same time, spread your fingers as much as you can. Hold it for a few seconds. Then squeeze your hands at the same time, flex your feet. Then when you get up, you feel like, okay, I don't feel dizzy at all. So that's good, okay? So something very simple for you to do. So this is a combination of the exercise that you can do it standing. And I'm adding the shoulder roll at the end. So of course, first is the calf raises. So this is mimicking the feet extension and flexion exercise that I show you when you're sitting or lying in your bed, okay? So that's the calf raises, okay? And then at the same time, you could, of course, do the palm, like make a fist and then spreading your palms as much as you can, right? So you see, you can do it simultaneously. Then I would like to add the shoulder roll to this exercise as well. So that way you're also moving your, like activating your neck muscles and back muscles. So raise your heel. At the same time, open your palms and then shrug your shoulder. Hold it for a few seconds. Squeeze your shoulder blade. Make a fist. Lower your body down. Lower your shoulder down. Back to the original position. All right, so thank you for watching. And at the end of today's video, I really wanted to share with you one great resources that I think it will help you, okay? So at the beginning of the pandemic, my team and I developed an 8-week fitness program just for seniors. I actually have the digital, like a PDF copy in front of me. You could also download it from our website, weseniors.ca. You could do it by following the PDF file, or you could follow the 16 YouTube videos that I created for you, step by step, showing you how to do it. Very simple to follow. So I really want you to benefit from this. And at the end, just thank you for watching, and I wish you all the best and healthy and happy.
Osteoarthritis and low trauma falls and fracture become increasingly common as we age. So it's important to maintain physical fitness. Make sure we engage in exercise to keep joints stable, but also in exercise program to maintain our balance and stability. However, at some point, people may require joint replacement. Joint replacements for hips and knees are increasingly common. You might say, well, what can I expect? Well, the first thing to say is, as far as hips go, the circumstances in which the requirement for hip replacement occurs is important. If it's what we call a planned or elective hip replacement, the results can be very good, but they're less good in emergency hip replacements as a result, for example, of a fall. However, in both circumstances, up to a third of people do not regain their previous health status following the operation. Now, this is very variable and depends upon the pre-hip replacement activities, but also the expectations of the individual after the hip replacement and the level of activity prior to the hip replacement. People whom, for example, do sports prior to their hip replacement may continue to do them, but people do not tend to take up new sports after their hip replacement. Most people regain their previous health status within 6 months of the operation. But as we say, up to a third of people don't regain that previous health status. Knee replacements tend to be a little more complicated and outcomes generally not quite as good as hip replacements. But once again, up to a third of people tend to be dissatisfied with the result of their operation. Again, this does depend on what people expect from their operation as a result of the procedure itself. So you need to think about realistic expectations. Knee replacements are very good for the reduction in pain, but appear to be not quite as good, for example, for resumption of mobility. Once again, health status tends to be regained by the majority of people within 3 to 6 months of the procedure. Motivation for rehabilitation and engaging with active rehabilitation after the procedure is extremely important in terms of regaining health status. Technically, operations are very good and the operations are very safe. Expectations of the procedure certainly need to be discussed with the surgeon prior to the procedure so that expectations can be adjusted accordingly. The number of hip and knee surgeries has escalated over the last 10 to 15 years. This may well be a good thing in that intervening in the disease process earlier might give people better outcomes for longer. Clearly, conservative treatments for arthritis are still the most important things. Weight maintenance, exercise and maintaining joint stability, and simple pain relief are all important. But when the time comes for hip replacement, perhaps an earlier replacement rather than later is better for quality of life.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of OLTV. If you liked what you saw and you want to watch more, like this video and subscribe to the Optima Living channel right here on YouTube.